also heard testimony from family members of two of the men killed in the Benghazi attack. They spoke about their ongoing efforts to find out more information from the State Department. This is a little less than an hour.
We now recognize our second panel of witnesses. Ms. Patricia Smith is the mother of Sean Smith, who lost his life in the attacks on the U.S. diplomatic facilities in Benghazi on September 11, 2012. And Mr. Charles Woods is the father of Tyrone Woods, who also lost his life that night. I want to thank you for your patience. Hopefully you benefited as much from the question and answers as the committee did. Pursuant to the rules of the committee, could you please rise to take the oath? And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Let the record indicate both witnesses answered in the affirmative. You waited a long time through the first panel, and there were a great many questions. There will be many less questions, and I would ask that you tell us what you feel, what you've experienced, so that we could understand what it's been like for this slightly more than 1 year since the death of your loved ones. Ms. Smith.
I don't know exactly. Do I need to do something here? I don't exactly know what to say. I have been ignored by the State Department. I've been told I was unimportant, and I had to find everything I know by going on the internet and asking questions, because nobody from the government has gotten back to me to tell me anything. And that I mean that by saying anything. And it's been, I hate to put it in the record, but it's been pure hell living through all this and not getting any answers. I wanted to be able to put everything beside me and have everything go away. But I can't do that because I don't have plenty of answers that I need. One silly question that I have is, every time I see this on TV, I see these bloody fingerprints crawling down the wall of that Benghazi place, and I keep asking everybody, do those belong to my son? And nobody has told me anything. One person says, no, it's not them, it's not him. But this is the kind of answers I get. Are those his bloody fingerprints? And I know you people can't answer that now, but this is how it feels. And it feels terrible. I want answers. I want to know what happened with my son. And I know you can't tell me anything classified, but tell me something. The only thing, but I do, wait a minute, I take that back. I apologize. I was told a few things, and they were all lies. Obama and Hillary and Panetta and Biden and Susan all came up to me at the casket ceremony. Every one of them came up to me, gave me a big hug, and I asked them, what happened? Please tell me. And every one of them says, it was the video. And we all know that it wasn't the video. Even at that time, they knew it wasn't the video. So they all lied to me. But what they said was, I will check up on it and get back to you for sure. And you know how many times I heard from them? None. I don't count. People of America don't count. The only thing that counts is their own selves and their own jobs, and the people that are involved in this get suspended for a short time, paid the whole time, and then rehired or whatever it is that they do. I want to know what happened to my son. Why can't these people tell me this? I'm sorry, I'm ranting. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Congressman Issa, for inviting the members of the family.
You'll probably have to pull your mic a little closer.
Can you hear me now?
Just like a Verizon commercial.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say This tie right here is special to me. It was worn at my son's funeral, and I only wear it on special occasions. And this right here, I trust, is something special that's happening. The other thing that's special that's happening is after Ty went home to be with the Lord, I really was concerned about his son that was born he only saw for a very brief time before he left on assignment, how he'd be doing. And after 1 year, we spent the day with him yesterday. That was the one ray of sunshine through the clouds this week. So 2 special things have happened here, and I thank you for what you're doing. It's been over a year since 4 brave Americans were tragically killed in Benghazi. And after 1 year, we know very few answers that we have been asking for the last year. We don't know much more than we did a year ago. 2 of my heroes while growing up were John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. Reverend King made the statement that justice delayed is justice denied. It's been over a year. We have no justice, and we have very few truthful answers that have been provided. Public testimony is necessary in front of a committee such as this so that the American people can get the truth. So I thank you very much for what you're doing here. Now, voters, they need to know the truth about what happened in Benghazi in order to protect America's freedoms. Now, a lot of people, unfortunately, say that we can't tell the people the truth. We have to answer, I can't answer that question, such as the ambassador did. There are too many of these witnesses that are testifying behind closed doors, and we don't know what they said. We don't see their faces on TV to tell whether or not they're credible witnesses. We don't see whether or not the right questions were asked to get to the truth, or whether meaningless questions were asked instead. So it's very important that we have public testimony by credible witnesses with firsthand, not hearsay, knowledge of the situation. That is why it is imperative that you call people like General Ham. You call people like Ty's friends who have contacted various committees and wanted to testify through their attorney, but have not been issued subpoenas. There are people out there that have firsthand knowledge, and public testimony is necessary. The voters need to have the truth about Benghazi so that the voters can protect the freedom of America. Now, after 1 year, there's certain questions that I would like to have answered. Recently, I sent a letter to the President who offered to reach out for answers. Some of the questions I asked, I would like to direct to this body as well. I am the father of Ty Woods, who was killed while heroically defending the American Consulate in Benghazi. These are some of the questions. Who made the decision to stand down, and when and why was that decision made? Now, there is some conflict as to whether or not there was an order to stand down. There are very credible sources that say that Ty and 5 of his Special Forces workers were denied 3 times. Once they went, were denied. They waited a certain period of time. Second time they were denied. They waited another period of time. Third time they were denied. They went anyway. We need to ask the people that were there, not rely upon hearsay evidence as to whether or not there was an order to stand down. More importantly, we also need to find out who it was that gave that order to stand down and why that order was given to stand down. The former admiral of the Pacific Fleet said that in all of his decades of service, this has never happened where a rescue attempt was not at least attempted immediately. And immediately does not mean the next day. Immediately does not mean 8, 9, 10 hours later. When is also important because Ambassador Stevens was alive for a substantial period of time after he made that initial distress call. It's very possible that there would have been no loss of life if that first order to stand down had not been given. We need to find that out. Another question, is it true that General Ham was relieved from duty for refusing to follow the order not to rescue? I have had a general tell me that according to his intel, that General Ham was relieved of duty because immediately after the distress call was relayed to him, he was told to stand down. And his words, according to this general, were, I don't speak like this, screw it. And within moments, General Ham was relieved of his duty by an inferior officer. Now, the spin that was given by the administration was that this was a pre-scheduled rotation of generals. Well, I think it's an insult to the intelligence of the American community to say that a general in the middle of a battle would be relieved because of a pre-scheduled rotation, and especially by an inferior officer. We need to have that direct testimony by General Ham, and it needs to be public so that the voters can view the credibility of who's telling the truth, because the ARB contradicts that and says that there was not any denial of support by anyone from Washington at page 37. Finally, this is a very personal question to me, but a very important question, and that is, if the President's child were in Benghazi, would the rescue attempt have been more aggressive? There's very strong evidence of what the answer to that question is, and I will let every American make that decision for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief in my questions, and first I'll start with a comment for both of you. We're essentially the Select Committee on Investigations here in the House, and we have a counterpart in the Senate. We have a long history of doing investigations, and sometimes people talk about us writing subpoenas and demanding people and hauling people before this committee. And we don't walk away from that. Sometimes it's necessary. Today, I want you to know that just today, I signed subpoenas for Alec Henderson and John Martinek.
Thank you.
If there are additional witnesses who have facts and were on the ground and want us to issue subpoenas, if their names could be provided to us, we will do so. We're issuing the subpoenas for these two individuals because the State Department has repeatedly lied in how they reflected these people's availability, saying that they were available if they wanted to come forward. Well, a spokesperson in the press office, after repeatedly being asked by press officials, not us, but press officials, essentially created the obvious slant, which was that these individuals were free to come forward, but there was a criminal investigation and they might harm it. We finally have reached the end of our rope after repeated requests for these individuals. In fact, their names have never been formally given to us, but rather a large stack of information delivered to us as classified, while in fact on their face being unclassified, is guarded by a State Department official, and we may not make copies of it. Instead, we were able to find from open source the names of these individuals, and we today subpoenaed them. We will not end our investigation until all your questions are answered.
Thank you.
One of the questions, Mrs. Smith, that I have is, how could President Obama tell you that, in fact, this had anything to do with the video when he has said, quite frankly, during a live debate in Denver, that the next morning in the Rose Garden he knew it was a terrorist attack. And that statement in the Rose Garden obviously occurred prior to your son coming home. So that one I find hard to believe. Ambassador Rice, on the other hand, continued to be somewhat delusional as to the cause of this on 5 sequential television appearances. Secretary Clinton, I'm not sure what difference it makes to her, but I am surprised that she would make a categoric statement of something that her own acting ambassador on the ground has said before this committee under oath. He knew from the moment it happened that it was, in fact, a terrorist attack. And more importantly, the Secretary was well aware that the ambassador went to bed at 9:05 and would never have gone to bed if, in fact, there was a large demonstration occurring outside his door. For both of you, I really, truly regret your loss, and I can see the pain that you deal with every day. I'm not going to inflict any more pain on you here today. The promise I make is that as long as I have this gavel, I will continue to pursue this. As you go down the dais, at least most of the dais, you're going to see people who have worked on this and will continue to work on this. And I want you to take particular note to Mr. Chaffetz, who, on my request, made the first trip to the region, was with General Ham. And if he were sitting next to you, the testimony he would give as to what he found out from General Ham before the handlers got to him was quite a bit different than what was later related. So, Mr. Woods, we will work with you, we'll work with both of you to try to get you the truth. The fact is that will not bring your loved ones back. And the only thing we can say is that it may save somebody else as a result of their efforts. And I also want to reiterate what I think is understood, is those who picked up arms to defend the compounds undoubtedly saved the lives of their colleagues. And if reports are correct, there were more than 30 people who are alive today because of their heroic efforts. And I want to thank you for that and recognize the ranking member for his questions.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you all for being here. It is so important. And Mr. Woods, the last conversation I had with you was a very wonderful conversation that I've actually written about. And I remember you asked 2 things: that we find out who did this, who's responsible, and do everything in our power to bring them to justice. But you also said something else, and that was to do everything that we could to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else. I made a commitment to you that day, and I continue to make the commitment to you today to do just that. So, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Woods, I join my colleagues in expressing our sympathy for your loss and honoring their memories. It's tough, I know, and very, very difficult. Not all of the heroes who were killed in Benghazi have family here today, but I wanted to honor those individuals as well, as I know you would. Mr. Woods, like your son, Glenn Doherty, was a Navy SEAL who spent his life serving our country. He was part of the team that responded to the USS Cole attack, and he participated in 2 tours of duty in Iraq. I'd like to read some words of kindness that friends of Glenn Doherty shared with at his memorial. Here is what one friend and former Navy SEAL said about Glenn. My friend Glenn, he would never pound his chest or tell you how great he was. Glenn was a great listener and always had experienced advice. He was the jack of all trades and the master of all, a person that was great at everything he did, a warrior, spirit balanced by kindness of hearts. Here's what another friend and former Navy SEAL said about him. Glenn was, without a doubt, the most liked man I've ever met. He was the conduit through which hundreds of people knew one another and kept in touch and up to date with each other. I can't remember ever hearing anyone say a bad thing about the man, which I find particularly interesting considering he was one of the most genuine men I've ever known. He was a brother in arms as well as a brother in life. Don't cry for Glenn. He would not approve of that. Celebrate a man who lived well and died with a gun in his hand, fighting for those too weak to fight for themselves. Another former Navy SEAL described Glenn this way. He said, Glenn Doherty was a true American hero in every sense of the word. He embodied the selfless spirit, unwavering determination to succeed, and the dedication to our country that sets the standard for what every American should strive to be. The loss of this incredible warrior is one that will forever hurt this nation's heart, as Glenn was truly a gift to the many people that knew him and even to the ones who didn't. There's nothing he wouldn't do to help those that were close to him, and he never met a stranger. Glenn was that he would not befriend. Glenn was one of the finest men I have ever had the pleasure of knowing, and the Brotherhood mourns the loss of one of its very best. And I think that we could, as a matter of fact, I know we could say the same about your sons. They were gifts to us, and guess what? You also gifts to them. And we're going to do everything in our power, as the Chairman said, to get to the bottom of this. But we thank you so much for being here.
I do have another question. I do have another question, and it's not really a question, but it's when I spoke to Obama and Hillary and all the rest that I told you about, they all promised me, including Obama, that he would get back to me and that it was a fault of the video. So don't tell me that he didn't know about it. He may have changed his mind, but he did tell me that it was a fault of the video.
Yeah.
And I don't trust my government anymore because they lie to me.
Again, I want to thank you all both for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, and I'll be brief too. I can't add to what's been expressed already, other than just to say thank you and your family for the service to our country, for coming here and testifying today. God bless you. And I'm committed, just like the Chairman said, to getting to the truth, asking every question, getting every witness and on that witness stand under oath. That's the way our system works. There's a problem in the executive branch. They have to come here in front of Congress under oath and answer questions from the legislative branch. That's how you have accountability. That's how you have the checks and balances that the Founders wanted. And I'm committed to doing that. But again, I just want to thank you for you and your family's courage and the sacrifice of each of your families has made for our country.
Mr. Chaffetz.
Well, thank you, Chairman. And I thank you both for being here. God bless you and your families. I just love when ordinary Americans do extraordinary things. And for both of your sons and the others that were involved, we can never forget their service, their sacrifice, and the millions of people, quite frankly, that have gone before them and done as well. And I can only hope that my kids will look at what your kids did. I just appreciate it, and I just want to say thank you. As Mr. Jordan said, part of what we do as a nation, which makes us different from so many others, is we are self-critical. We do look hard at these things, and that's why we have this inspired document called the United States Constitution. So you will always have an open door here. We have a duty and obligation to find out the truth, because you deserve that, our country deserves that, and we've got to make sure that it never, ever happens again. But here's my concern. Here's a quote from the President. This is November 14th of last year. The President said, quote, "I think that it is important for us to find out exactly what happened in Benghazi, and I'm happy to cooperate in any ways that Congress wants." That has never, ever happened. Not even close. Not even close. And it's sad to me to be 13 months after the fact and look you in the eye and tell you that has never happened. We have provided, this is again the President, we have provided every bit of information that we have, and we will continue to provide information. End quote. Again, that's never ever happened. The President continued, and we've got a full-blown investigation, and all that information will be disgorged to Congress. Again, I'm here to look you in the eye and tell you that hasn't happened either. They told us today the Accountability Review Board didn't even look at the video, didn't even look into that, didn't even see if that was one of the factors. The President continued, and I don't think there's any debate in this country that when you have 4 Americans killed, that's a problem. And we've got to get to the bottom of it, and there needs to be accountability. 13 months later, there hasn't been the accountability. That hasn't happened either. Finally, the President said, we've got to bring those who carried out to justice. There won't be any debate for me on that. I can tell you as a member of Congress, spending as much time as everybody here, who's still sitting here, by the way, that hasn't happened either. And so I know there are a lot of people who say, why are you still doing this? Why, why? It's all politics. We've been through this. The reason why. And I think if we just lived up to the promise that the President of the United States, days after an election, made to the American people, made to you, that's fine. That's the standard. I just want to live up to what the President said. I just want the President to do what he said he would do. Do you have any comments, Ms. Smith? Your microphone there.
I have many comments, but I can never bring them to mind when I want to.
You'll think about them tonight. I know. That happens to all of us.
There are just so many, many, many things that have happened, and I just want my government. I love my country. I love my country, but I sure don't like my government. And if these people are involved in it, why don't you get them out here to tell us their story? Why isn't Hillary out here telling us it was her department? Why isn't she been subpoenaed? Why can't somebody call her, get her out here and say, put her under oath and say, okay, what did you know? And hope that maybe she'll tell the truth.
Mr. Woods?
I would like to take this opportunity.
Sorry, your microphone again. Sorry.
I would like to take this opportunity to publicly honor Congressman Chaffetz. He has lived up to that promise to reach out to my family. After this happened, he gave me his personal cell phone number. Once I called him up, he was in the process of taking his children to Disneyland. He took a substantial chunk of his family's time out to talk with me. He was so concerned about this that in October, right after it happened, when it was still fresh, he went back to Benghazi, a very dangerous place, or back to Libya, with General Ham. And before General Ham was compromised, possibly, we don't know, he asked him that very pointed question about whether, there were assets and whether there was an order to stand down. Now, I'm old school. I keep my brains in my shirt pocket. I'm not the sharpest person in the world, so I have to write important things down. And this is what General Ham told Jason Chaffetz. General Ham told the Joint Chiefs of Staff the forces were available, but no order to use them was given. That is in direct conflict to page 23 of the ARB report. We need to have public testimony where the public can judge credibility and find out whether one is credible or the other. Jason Chaffetz is a man of impeccable credibility. There's no question.
Well, you're very kind, too kind. God bless you both.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we need to hear from the survivors, who were on the ground that night. He needs to be in public so the country can hear it, so these families can hear it. Those that survived the attacks in Benghazi are the ones that we have to hear from. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Meehan.
A grateful nation thanks you for the sacrifice of your children, the service of your children, and the sacrifice of your families. My prayers are with you, and I'll be inspired by your courageous testimony here today to assure that we do what we can to continue to try to get you answers, and I thank you for your courage being here. I yield back.
Mr. Cowdy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Smith and Mr. Woods, I want to express on a personal level my gratitude and my sympathy to you for the loss of your sons, and to everyone that loved your sons and all the 4 victims of Benghazi. When you were testifying, I couldn't help but think of this dichotomy of death, that sometimes it walks slowly to the front door of your life, and it gives you plenty of time to get your affairs in order. You've had a good life. You have time to say goodbye to the people you love. You have time to offer a prayer for your soul. It just walks slowly and knocks gently on the front door. And then sometimes it kicks in the front door unexpectedly with no notice, and you don't even have time to offer a prayer. And the word closure is used all the time. In my experiences, it's only used by people who have never suffered the loss of a child, because there is no closure. I can't offer you closure. What I hope we can offer you is the truth, facts, justice, and let you do with that what you need to do as you walk down that road we call grief. So we can't give you closure. It's the facts, the truth. And the real jury, Mr. Woods, Ms. Smith, is the American people. They're the ones watching this trial unfold, and they will decide. They heard this morning a perspective that everything that can be investigated has been investigated. Everything. That's one perspective. The other perspective is you didn't even bother to interview some of the central key eyewitnesses. And the American people are going to have to decide whether or not they would ever tolerate an investigation where you don't call eyewitnesses and you don't call the people responsible for whatever the duty was. But I want to leave you with this. I want you to know this. From the upstate of South Carolina, I am asked about Benghazi more than any other issue. It has not been forgotten. I suspect you both live a long ways from the upstate of South Carolina. But just know, Republican, Democrat, Independent, don't know, don't care, from church to the grocery store to Costco, frankly to the golf course, I am asked about Benghazi, and in effect about your sons, more than any other issue. So the jury has not forgotten. Yes, ma'am. I will work with Mr. Chaffetz, whom I agree with you on your characterization of, and the others. And frankly, there are folks on both sides who want to find out. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Cummings has been here all day. Can't give you closure. I just want to give you the facts and the truth and justice and let you use it however you need to use it. Yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady from California, Mrs. Spear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Ms. Smith and Mr. Woods, we have no idea what you're going through. Even those of us who have lost spouses and endured horrific experiences have no idea. But we are a grateful country for the service of your sons. And we want to see that the truth bears out. We also want to make sure that this doesn't ever happen again. And we know you're here in part because you don't want to see anyone else go through this. And I think it would be helpful to us to hear about your sons. So if you could just take a couple of minutes each and talk about how wonderful they were. I mean, Mr. Woods, I believe your son was a Navy SEAL and served in some of the most dangerous places on the planet to protect our country. Could you just tell us a little bit about each of your sons?
I was told that Ty was a SEAL among SEALs. He was an alpha male among alpha males. We sat around when the bodies were coming in with several of his SEAL friends, and we were exchanging stories, like what you're asking for. They exchanged a story with me that I had never heard before. And one was that Ty was two things: a man of incredible physical and moral strength. He would not allow what they would refer to, or he would refer to, he would use the word smoke and mirrors. He would not allow any breach of integrity. He could bench press over 500 pounds. You've seen a picture of his arms, okay. Obviously a recessive gene. And once someone in authority lied to him, gave him smoke and mirrors. He took that strong Navy SEAL arm of his, lifted the person up by this part of their body, and said, in Navy SEAL language, I'll paraphrase, "Don't ever lie to me again. No more smoke and mirrors." If Ty, and I seriously think there's a very good chance up in heaven he might know more about this hearing than anyone in this room knows right now. He might know about the lack of integrity. He might take one of those people who, you can kind of paint the picture, who's shown smoke and mirrors, and figuratively speaking, lifted that person up and said, "No more lies, no more smoke and mirrors." That's what Ty would want. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Oh. I'm not a good button pusher. Sean was married. I didn't see very much of him towards the end. He was stationed in The Hague. I didn't know about Benghazi. I didn't know anything about Benghazi. Now I even learned how to spell it, which took a little bit. But he said he was always being sent out to various different places, and he'd call me all the time, and I'd call him all the time, and we kept in touch that way. And I was 38 before I even had him. I was told I couldn't have kids. But my family called him Patsy's kid, because that was my kid, my miracle baby. Well, my miracle baby was abandoned in Benghazi, that I couldn't spell before, but I can now. And he was I don't know what to say about him. He was just a wonderful kid. And I love the hell out of him, and I always will. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. We now go to the gentlelady from Wyoming, Mrs. Loomis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Smith, could I ask you to introduce some of your family members who are with you here today?
Okay, this is my friend Don Howard.
I'm done.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I'm so pleased that, Don, that you're with us as well. Don, yes. Thank you so much for being with us. And Mr. Woods, could you introduce your family members who are with you today?
Well, I've brought two of Ty's sisters, and one is Joy. She's the oldest. She's a senior in high school. and Hope, she's an 8th grader. They also have another sister by the name of Faith.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thank you for introducing your family members, and there's a verse in the Bible that says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." In your case, Mr. Woods, surely hope and joy will follow you all the days of your life, and faith as well. So you can rest assured that your family will be enormously supportive of each other as you endure this loss, and that you will fill a hole in Kai's life that their father would deeply appreciate. So thank God for family and for you all. And Mrs. Smith, I want to hope for you that you'll have the peace of God, because like Mr. Gowdy, the people that I represent visit about you and your children and what they did for our country with me frequently, in the great hope that we will continue to search for answers. And I want to congratulate the chairman of this committee, the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Chaffetz, and all the gentlemen with whom I serve on my side of the aisle, and all the gentlemen and ladies with whom I serve on the other side of the aisle, who are in relentless pursuit of the truth. I too, Mrs. Smith, hear from many of my constituents that they don't trust their government anymore. And it's among the saddest things that I hear from my constituents. And it makes me sad to hear it from you here today. But that's why we're here. That's why we were elected, to restore people's trust in their own government. And on this issue, trust will not be restored until we get to the truth. And so we will continue to seek the truth. We appreciate your participation, and we wish you God's good graces as we continue to pursue the truth. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. We now go to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Wahlberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess what I want to say to you, too, is that as a member from Michigan, a member who understands my position representing a district, not even a state, but a district. But that district is made of people who expect us to stand firmly behind the Constitution, the oath of office we've taken, which involves defending and protecting our citizens against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. There are times when a bureaucratic maze sometimes becomes the enemy of a good and great country, which is none other than a good and great people. Your sons were good and great people. Their memories will continue to expand the opportunities for defining what good and great is in the context of America. My sons and daughter, my grandsons and granddaughter, when they hear the story that I will tell them, regardless of what the history books say, about the heroes of Benghazi, and I've learned to spell it now too, Mrs. Smith, with an H in it. They will hear the story of men who rushed in, men who stood firm, men who understood the cost and ultimately gave the supreme sacrifice. But I hope they also hear the rest of the story from me, that I was privileged to serve in a Congress that didn't stop looking for and achieving the truth. I'm not looking for a pound of flesh. I'm not looking even for punishment, though I think it ought to be meted out. But I'm looking for the truth. Your family members would have done no less. And so I can't ask you any questions, but I can assure you of my commitment to continue the effort toward truth that would honor your sons and our great country. And I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Langford.
Bless y'all for a very long day. I cannot imagine what it was like to start the travel here and to know that the destination was going to end up right here where you are right now after a very, very long day. So thank you. I am overwhelmed with Psalm 34:18, where it says, "The Lord is near the brokenhearted, and He saves those who are crushed in spirit." And I pray that for you and for your family, that you will experience the closeness and the nearness of God and the comfort that only He can provide in this. Here's another city you may not be able to spell, Mrs. Smith. Like Benghazi, all of us learned how to spell that. Wewoka, Oklahoma. Wewoka, Oklahoma is a tiny little town in my district. And in August, I held a town hall meeting in Wewoka, Oklahoma, a town you've never heard of until just now. And they asked me about Benghazi. And they wanted to know, in small town Oklahoma, what's being done to get the facts out and hold people in Libya that did this to account. There are people all over the country that care deeply about this, small towns and big towns, and they stand with you. And I thought you needed to know that today, that the good folks in Wewoka, Oklahoma, care deeply about what's going on, as well as in big towns. Well, you need to look it up. Yeah, go to Oklahoma City and move east, and you'll find Wewoka out there. So grateful that y'all are here. Thank you for being a part of this day, and please keep us informed of the questions that you have. It is important that you receive what you were promised, and that's the facts and the truth. And we want to help in that in every way we can. With that, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We now go to the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Bentivolio.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Smith, Mr. Wood, I'd like to echo and reiterate what my colleagues have said earlier in their sentiments, and know in your heart I agree with you. I feel share your frustrations in finding the truth. I was never a career politician. I served 26 years part-time and full-time in the military, served in Vietnam and Iraq freedom. Since I've been here in Washington, and I'm new, I started January 3rd, and I came to the realization that the hardest thing to find here in Washington is the truth. It's a rare thing. With the verbal two-steps, the shuffle, the verbal moonwalk, the dodge, and all those smoke and mirrors, it's pretty hard to find it. And I feel your frustration and understand exactly what you mean when you say, I love my country, but my government is a problem. Yeah. But I want you to know that I'm joining and have joined because one of the reasons I came here was to find out what actually happened in Benghazi. As a soldier, I always believed in the warrior ethos, never leave one of our own behind. And I know in the unit that I came from, we have we hold that warrior ethos pretty high, with high regard. And the people I served with, well, like your lost, strived valiantly and dared greatly in service to our country. My office is open and at your service. Whatever you need, don't hesitate to ask. I'm sure it applies to everyone here. Thank you. God bless you. I yield back my time.
I thank the gentleman. I guess I'm the last thank you. It's been a long day. It's been a long year, longer for you than for any two people we could possibly conceive of. both for you and for the other surviving family members that are not here today. We thank you for your comments and statements, including the written statements you heard me read at the beginning. I don't think any words are going to equal what has to be done. So I told you a little bit about what this committee is doing. You saw people with differing opinions on the dais. The opinion that ultimately matters is the opinion of the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House has authorized repeatedly the investigation to continue, the subpoenas, and all the work that we're doing. And I'm quite sure that as long as John Boehner is Speaker, I will have the ability and the authority to continue getting to the bottom of this. And since we're all piling on Mr. Chaffetz, the fact is that I have a team that you saw a great many of today, and they too will continue to have that ability to go anywhere, anytime, and get to the truth. It takes a long time, and for that I apologize. But we haven't quit, and we won't quit. Mr. Woods, I can only say that it's seldom I would note for the record that my sister Faith, my sister Hope, and my departed sister Willow would be very proud of the naming practices within your family. And with that, one light note of the day, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.